Silicon Valley has pioneered the idea that providing private capital to visionary entrepreneurs could fund innovation and create technologies that could change the world. However, the walk down the yellow brick road to investor capital is no easy path to follow. My name is Jim Connor. Welcome to Game Changers Silicon Valley, a show about the innovators of today who will be the game changers of tomorrow. In this segment, we will discuss the journey of the entrepreneur. My guests are Alicia Castillo-Halley, a serial entrepreneur and angel investor, and Pilar Manchon, who founded her company in Spain, moved to Silicon Valley, grew the company, and had a successful exit. Alicia and Pilar, welcome to the show. Pilar, you have an interesting story with your history of starting in Spain in an agricultural area. Maybe you can give us a little overview of what led you to start this company, what kind of product did you develop, and how did you find your first customers?
Well, I was actually in the US studying, and I was hired by a startup company in Florida. So I had already some industry experience and some training here in the Bay Area. And when I went back to Spain, I started working on a research project that just had amazing results. So knowing that they had an impact, or it was going to have an impact in the market, I had this business idea and I proposed it to who was going to be my co-founder, the director of the research group that I was working for, and then we both started the company. And after many ups and downs and very interesting stories, we basically managed to raise enough capital to get started. Our first customers, funny enough, our first customer was the government of Andalusia. That was a big bet on their part because we were a very small company for a very large project and we had no background to basically prove ourselves. And again, after the crisis in Spain and going under and then raising some more capital, we ended up in raising enough money to grow and then selling the company.
So you started the company in 2007, is that correct?
2005.
You built it over 4 years to get it to be a profitable company in 2009. 2009, the financial crisis in the world hit, Lehman went bankrupt, everybody went under. And you guys had tough times and went down to being unprofitable, correct?
Well, it was terrible because our pipeline of customers was very hard to build, and we had been working hard on that, but because of the crisis, most of the customers decided to cancel the contracts with us. Mm-hmm. And that obviously was really difficult for a small company that had to pay salaries, right? So we had to be very resourceful to keep our best people, and we had to go abroad and find customers elsewhere outside of Spain. And that's what got us out of the hole.
And your very first investors were angel investors, correct, in Spain?
That's right.
2 or 3? Is it?
It was first, 2 of them.
2 of them. So Alicia, you're a very successful serial entrepreneur and an angel investor. Among other things, you're also a professor of entrepreneurship and you do a number of other things. Tell me about your plight as an entrepreneur to raise money. How difficult and what did you have to go through to be successful in that area?
I've started several companies, so each company was different. I raised some funds from family and friends. I didn't know anything about angel investing. And I raised enough funds from investors later in life to start a VC fund. So I started Chile's first seed capital fund. And the process was very different. What I focused on was doing things the professional way. Having some knowledge about some of the concepts, knowing what I wanted to do, knowing where I wanted to go, and learning as I went along. I didn't grow up in a culture or in a country where venture capital existed, and I didn't live in those countries until later. So I'm a firm believer in entrepreneurship and venture capital and angel investing. And you just have to go and believe in yourself and go through the process. Okay, you can't fast track.
Why did you create the VC fund?
I created the VC fund because when I moved to Chile, I started a Center for Entrepreneurship, and then I realized that entrepreneurship couldn't work without venture capital. So I started helping companies be prepared to receive venture capital. And then I got to the point where I had 32 companies, and I thought, hey, you know what? It is easier to create a fund than to help them individually. Mm-hmm. And then we created the fund, we invested in some of those companies, and we let the companies grow.
And who were the initial limited partners of the fund?
I talked to over 1,000 people. That was really hard, really hard. Nobody believed me. Nobody thought it was possible. Here I am, Venezuelan, trained in the U.S., trying to do something in Chile. So it was really difficult. I did a lot of academic research. I did a lot of research, and I kept going through and learning every interaction was a learning. And then I asked everybody, can you tell me 2 people that would like to look at this? So every single interaction would give me new leads into talking to other people. So it took me a little bit over a year.
So Pilar, back to your story now. You came here in 2011, I believe. You went to Italy, UK, Chile, and then you came and found some US customers, is that right?
I came here to basically learn how to pitch to American investors because I was correctly believing that it was going to be easier for us to raise money here given the nature of the company.
Did you have any customers here at that time?
No.
You came here with no customers to learn how to raise, and what were your first few meetings like?
Well, they were difficult because, first of all, we had no money, so the way I came here was in a very resourceful, almost self-funded way. Uh-huh. And the first few people I interviewed with, my target was to basically pitch what I knew was a great product and a great company, but in the way that I have been doing it in Europe. And it's not the same message that they want to hear here. It's not the same packaging. So my target was just to get enough feedback so that I could modify the pitch that I was building to what the investors were expecting to hear here and make sure that I was fully prepared for any questions that they had. I knew the business inside out, right? So that was not the issue.
What kind of rejection did you get? How harsh was it? And were people willing to honestly tell you what was wrong with your business plan or your pitch?
Well, that was a very tough process, right? Because my interest was to get either interest or at least feedback that would help me improve. And I was aware that I was probably not going to get it the first few times, so I was going to have to iterate a lot, and I did iterate a lot. Yeah. And in some cases, people were very candid, and they told me, well, listen, this is just not a good fit for us. Or, it would be much better if you did this or did that, or started here, or gave us this information, or if you focus on this market, we would be more interested. So that was a lot of feedback that was very useful. But in some other cases, we got zero feedback. Like they would show interest, or they would pretend they had interest, and then you would follow up. And then they would drop the conversations months afterwards without any feedback. But then it comes the Spaniard in me and the Spanish blood and say, well, I'm not gonna, okay, so we've established you have no interest. Yeah. Now, I'm not gonna back you anymore unless you don't tell me what was wrong or what is it that is not good enough for you. And then we got some more people to give us. But the big venture capitalists rarely gave you honest feedback unless you insisted a lot.
And did you insist by essentially continuing to call them or showing up at their office and saying, I have to speak to you, you have to give me some feedback? Or?
Well, I did not stalk anybody. Okay. But I did call and email. Mm-hmm. And they were not threatening or anything. It was just, a nice email saying like, well, it would help me a lot understand what is it that we didn't do quite as well, or what could we do better to gain your interest, right? Mm-hmm. And in some cases, they did not really have an answer. Mm-hmm. I think it was probably more of a personal chemistry. I think that some of the investors just need to feel the chemistry, and sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not.
So let me go back to you, Alicia, about this chemistry. Mm-hmm. I mean, now you are an investor, have been running a VC fund. You're now an active angel investor with an angel group here in the Bay Area. How much candid feedback do you give?
Well, I have to admit that I evaluate the person. There's people who don't want to get feedback. And just sort of calibrate, because you don't really want to insult anybody. You don't want to unencourage anybody. But there's some people, the people that make the most out of our conversations are the people that are open to receive feedback. Mm-hmm. And I always make it clear, it is my feedback based on my experience and based off what I want to do. For example, today I was talking to a guy in Kenya. We're not going to invest in them, but he had a good product. But it was not a good fit. I'm here, and that's part of my criteria. So understanding who the counterparty is very important. I received some good feedback, and I also received some bad feedback.
When you were pitching? When
I was pitching, okay. Yeah. And it was very important to discriminate what is what. And some people don't believe that you can succeed, and they're not going to help you out.
Did you develop a filter for bad advice versus worthwhile or good advice?
Well, if you get the same feedback from multiple people, that's a good sign that it's probably not that bad for you. But also you have to be true to who you are, right? So there is also a very big cultural difference, I think, between Europe or Spain and the US. And some of the feedback that I got, it just wasn't me. For instance, I got a lot of feedback talking about my passion when I was pitching, what I truly believed in, and that's who I am. So for me, to kind of give a pitch that was passionless was just not genuine. So I think it would detract more from the message and from who I am than the value that it would add or the credibility. And I thought that in any case, if an investor didn't want me to be passionate about what I'm passionate about, it was not going to work.
And so then finally you did get funded, right, with, I guess, a group in Silicon Valley here, and then you grew, and then you eventually had an exit, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Was that a solo investor that came in at that time?
Well, the last round of funding that we raised, it was with Intel Capital and another investor in Spain.
In Spain.
Another venture capital.
Now you told me it only took a year and a half to get the exit. Is that right after the round?
Well, it was very quick.
Maybe less than a year?
It was less than a year.
Oh, goodness.
We closed the round of funding in October 2012, and we closed the acquisition in June 2013, about 9 months afterwards.
9 months, wow, that's remarkable. Do you have any stories like that, Alicia, that you had that type of company that went in and got acquired right after you invested? Or
I haven't been that lucky.
Yeah.
It's, the things that turn out fast are the failures, and you need to close it fast because you're bleeding. Right. So that has been my experience.
What are you doing now, Alicia? Are you continuing to advise women teams and men teams equally, or do you focus on the women teams a little more?
I'm obviously a woman, so there's some vested interest in that. Yeah. I do want to see more women-led businesses, and I'm running a program for women because I think they have the capacity to get funded, but the numbers are really, really low, and I want to do something about it. But what I see, there's many reasons. I don't want to go into the reasons because I don't think going to reasons help anybody. There's excuses and reasons. I want to go into what are the things that we can do, not what is the problem, what is the solution. So I think the one thing that we can do, that anybody can do, is learn. Get prepared, because you don't want to waste anybody's time by being unprepared. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be prepared, especially now. And the other thing is that angel investing or venture capital is not the only way to fund a business. There's many ways to fund a business, and there's many ways to navigate through all the hurdles. I spent years working with some of my companies trying to get them up and running, and so did you. And if you're going to wait for the perfect venture capitalist or the perfect angel investor, you're going to run out of cash. Yep. So you need to learn the holistic process.
Right. Now, are you doing anything in the near term, or are you just sort of on an automatic pilot right now with your new company?
Well, I work for Intel. There is no automatic pilot. It's a very challenging environment with extremely talented people and a very aggressive marketplace. No autopiloting.
No autopilot, huh? No putting your heels up on the desk and kicking back.
Oh, well, the heels are there, but they're working.
They're working. That's great. That's great. I'll ask each of you if you'd like to have an email or contact information. I'll start with you, Alicia.
Yeah, I have a website called Women Get Funded. I'm doing a Kickstarter campaign as well to make this program available to as many women as possible. Very, very passionate about that. I have a great team behind me. And that's pretty much it, womengetfunded.com.
And Pilar?
In my case, the easiest way to contact me is through LinkedIn. Okay. So just search me, Pilar Manchon. That's probably the first one that comes up. Well,
I want to thank both of you. You've been delightful tonight. I've had a lot of fun. I've really learned quite a bit. And I didn't get through even half the questions. I've got a couple more sitting that I just love to have, but we'll stop now. And I want to thank you very much for coming in, and I appreciate your time, and I wish you every success going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim.
This is Jim Connor. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this segment of Game Changers Silicon Valley. You can follow us on our website, gamechangers.tv, Facebook, or Twitter. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with 3 investors who will address what it takes for an entrepreneur to get funding.